Former Mayor Joe Paolino is here. We're talking again about those Providence schools.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
I really enjoy when Joe comes on because we have some really hearty conversations. They're always very authentic and unrehearsed. And we started talking about the subject matter before the taping of the show. And I said, "Okay, stop." So stop. This is because we never rehearse the show, but I can feel that we're going to have a good, not a tussle, but like a lab session here on what needs to be done with the Providence schools. Great to have you aboard on Friday evenings. Remember, if something has gone crazy, we'll catch up to it on Monday because we tape on Thursday. We tape Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 2 on Thursday, so you get the Friday show on Thursday. That's how it works here for Dan York State of Mind. Full disclosure. Like the president might do something crazy, which happens like every 5 minutes or the like, right? Headline, again, to remind you, for those of you who have been not watching every single night, this is just from a couple of nights ago. And if you've seen this last couple of evenings, bear with me. This is the story that was Eyewitness News reported on the takeover, initial efforts by the Ed Commissioner, the new Ed Commissioner, to take over the Providence City Schools.
Aye. Motion passed.
Rhode Island's Education Commissioner another step closer to taking control of Providence Public Schools after a vote by the state's Council on Elementary and Secondary Education Tuesday night.
I'm very excited. I feel like we just witnessed history. And now I feel nervous because it's got to get done.
Education Commissioner Angelica Infante Green says once the state has control of the district, it can intervene in the budget, programs, and personnel because of a 1997 law called the Crowley Act. Infante Green tells us her job will be to reimagine what Providence schools look like, to get rid of any overlapping bureaucracy, and to create higher standards.
It doesn't have to look the way it does today. Clearly what we have today has not worked.
This push for state intervention comes in the wake of a scathing Johns Hopkins report on Providence schools, labeling them among the worst in the nation. After that report, 9 public forums were held. The commissioner says 1,100 people attended, sharing comments like this.
We don't even let animals live in the conditions that are present in our schools. Have you ever had to sit in a room and work when all you can smell is the odor of a dead rat somewhere? I have.
Infante Green says she's still developing plans for the district. But while she waits for the state to officially take over, several initiatives will be put in place for the start of the school year, targeted at changing school culture, tracking absenteeism, and creating a cell phone policy.
So what you will see in the next few months is benchmarks that we all need to meet, short-term and long-term. The scores will change with time. That's not something that you're going to see an immediate shift. However, you're going to start seeing a shift in all the other things that lead to better outcomes and a better school environment.
So, as I've said before, I think this commissioner is earnest in her effort. I think every day is a learning experience for her in terms of Rhode Island and Providence politics and how this whole thing goes. A guy who's been at the, well, not the epicenter anymore, but certainly nibbling at the edges as a real estate developer, former mayor, Joe Paolino. He's the author of a op-ed piece that appeared a couple of weeks ago in the Providence Journal. His partner in authoring, Gary Sass, was here a little while back and kind of laid out what he thought were some of the plans necessary for what you laid out as a school takeover plan by the state. Good to see you, by the way.
Good to see you.
Clearly you're getting some sun.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yes. Your executive summary is what?
In regards to what's happened to the
whole
schools?
Shebang.
I think the system is broken. Sometimes it's going to break before you can fix it. I think this is a gift to the city of Providence, the Johns Hopkins report. There's been a lack of a sense of urgency in government on all different levels and all different kind of subjects, which is frustrating to me now as an outsider seeing things, because I know what it is to be on the other side. I know you can make things happen. And this brings it to a sense of urgency that everybody's attention is on this now with the schools in Providence and how they need to be fixed, and everybody recognizes that they're going to have to be partners, if they like it or not, to try to fix it.
Well, are you, and I ask this, almost rhetorically, don't take it personally, have you been paying attention the last few weeks? Because the sense of urgency is only available in pockets. Some parents are coming out, 100 people here, a couple hundred people there. I think the commissioner did a good job in setting up these meetings. The mayor came to most of them. But if I read a report, a gift from Johns Hopkins University that says urine, squalor, rats, asbestos, this, that, the other thing, whether I think those are anecdotal stories, as the school chairman tried to buffalo me earlier this week to tell me, or if they're like, not, if it's understated, the first thing I would do as mayor is get an emergency audit of every school building in its current physical status. I'm not talking about capital improvement stuff. I'm talking about this stuff, and make people accountable on a 1, 2, 3, 4 week basis all the way right up until opening day, so that I can show and make it transparently auditable, so that I can show that my response is as urgent as the call or the gift. Don't you agree?
Totally. Move to Providence so I can vote for you. Yes.
Well, Joe, it's not rocket science. He
not.
hasn't done a damn thing, but he has told the commissioner, I'll take care of that. It's my jurisdiction. Slide over.
Yeah. You need an outsider. I think somebody from out of state. I'm glad the commissioner, quite frankly, is from out of state. She has no IOUs to anybody. She is acting very quickly when she first came in. I do believe this has been encouraged to her by the governor. I believe this because she wouldn't be going in this direction. She didn't have the support of Governor Raimondo on this. I think the mayor and the city council should embrace the report, make it their twin, make it part of their agenda, and push every move that has to be done, because what has been going on now for the last many years has not worked.
God.
And everybody is to blame on
Well,
this.
here's what I'm confused over. You and Gary wrote a great op-ed. Your op-ed doesn't reflect what you just said. Your op-ed says, take over.
But that's what I just said. You need
Well,
an out-of-stater to take it over.
No, but you're saying that the council and the city government ought to make it part of their what?
They should be supporting this takeover.
Here's what support means, in my judgment.
Okay.
Get the hell out of the way.
That may be part of the answer.
Well, I think it is the answer. How could it not be the answer? In fact, you lead toward that in your op-ed.
The city...
Or was that not your intent?
No, it was my intent. The city has to step aside and let professional people come in and take over the system.
Completely.
Completely.
Okay.
I don't hesitate on that. Completely.
Well, that's not what's going on right now.
Well,
We have this term
This is just
takeover floating, and we have the mayors, saying, I'm the one actually who's encouraging it, and as long as it works in a way that I'm comfortable with how the community's responding. But look, sorry you're only the mayor for 4.5 years. If you want to blame, Tavares and Cicilline and Cianci and Paolino and all the way back, God the hell, do it. I mean, just have a ball. The truth is, you've been the custodian right now for the last 4.5 years. You're in the wrong seat at the wrong time. Get out of the way. City government, get out of the way. School committee, get out of the way.
my dad used to have a saying, lead, follow, or get out of the way. And don't let the door hit you in the back when you're walking out. Look, Providence is a much different city than it was many years ago. You have a very diverse citizenry here in Providence. I was at a forum in New York back in November. Byron Ween, who is a chief economist for a major company called the Blackstone Group, was talking about China and how they had a 50-year plan and how their education is far superior than ours in the United States. And I said, well, time out. You have a homogeneous community in China. If they had the same diversity that we have in America, would their education system be at the levels it is today? He says, no, it wouldn't. I said, well, that's why we have to address what's happening. You have one white teacher in a class, 26 kids, all from different backgrounds, different cultures, different neighborhoods, a lot of them immigrants, a lot of them single parent households. Some parents are incarcerated. It's very challenging. To have one teacher who doesn't understand all their cultures and vice versa, teaching them by herself or himself is can't be done. K through 3, you need 2 teachers in a class probably. You got to give that extra attention. You need student aides to be there, teacher aides to be there also. Simplistic things like somebody bringing in their cell phone, it belongs in the locker room. Kids don't need to do that. Maybe we put kids in uniforms. I like charter schools. Charter schools are being very successful. Mayor Tavares and I are pretty friendly. And after he left office, he wanted me to go see Achievement First in Providence, a school that he was involved in trying to make it happen.
Part of the
charter
mayoral
school.
academies.
And we walked in there, and it was incredible seeing kids in uniform, parents involved, teachers involved, a lot of participation going on. They had no idea that we were going. And he said to me, he said, you know, it's funny. He said, a lot of people, institutions don't like charter schools. He says, we have white people telling us that we can't have them have charter schools. He said, look at all the kids. They're all Latino. He said, they need this. And so the kind of one-on-one education that is needed has not been going on. I think I understand this process better after having 4 kids who are now adults, seeing them through schools. And by the way, they went to private school. They didn't go to public school, and I'm glad I was able to afford to send them there. But why can't we do some of the same techniques in teaching that you have in charter schools or private schools or parochial schools and put it in the public schools in Providence?
So that's all the good stuff, meaning that's the meat of the sandwich that the commissioner would love to sink her teeth into right now. That's the curriculum solutions. That's her wheelhouse. Right now, she is months, perhaps years away from being able to dig into that. When we come back, we'll talk about this governance model and what he, the mayor, and Gary Sass said. Stay with us.
The special master is the commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief can't operate effectively unless there's good communications with the city, there's a working relationship, whether it's an interim superintendent or, you know, other people that are in the school administration. That's part of the skill and leadership of a person that comes in to run the system. They can't do it in isolation. They have to work with who's there. But they, at the end of the day, they're the Eisenhower. They're not the Montgomery.
Right. And so obviously there's got to be human interaction. I mean, whoever comes in can't run the whole doggone system themselves. But that excerpt is part of a contextual conversation that I had with Gary Sass, who's the former director of administration for the state of Rhode Island, DOR director, RIPEC. I worked in the city a long time ago. He and Joe were at a social event, got together, had some common thoughts on the school takeover, wrote this op-ed piece, and talks about this Crowley Act as the foundational movement for all of this. I have to tell you something. Crowley Act's not tough enough, and the Crowley Act is actually written more for school takeover than it is for district takeover. Gary didn't argue with me when I said that this thing needs steroids. And steroids are statutory efforts on the part of the General Assembly. So when you talk to the governor and talk about the governor, I think the governor is another one of her classic, you know, big eyes and only second gear effort. She needs to get, you know, she wants to do a special session to get IGT contract through. I mean, it's a whole other debate. And I understand why, and she may be correct on that stuff. But I will tell you that this General Assembly needed to have a special session to authorize, if not a statewide new piece of statute, something specific for the city schools that would allow for the kind of cavalry type of approach here to move the city government the heck out of the way, because I don't think they're going to go on their own, Joe.
Again, we talk about the sense of urgency. Now's the time. There is a lot of attention on this. Right now, I'm not paying attention to who's in the city. I'm paying attention on the commissioner. And I think everybody's going to have to follow her lead. And I believe she's going to be aggressive. I haven't met her yet, but her statements are good statements. I'm going to meet her next week for the first time. And she now will have everybody's attention. The business community, parents, students, political leaders. And everybody's going to have to be on board if they want to fix it.
She needs law.
And they are going to have to make the changes.
She needs law.
We talked about maybe even changing the Constitution.
She needs a governance model to be effective.
Well, tell me, I don't think the legislature, I have maybe a little bit more respect than others for people that are in office. They're going to see the sense of urgency and the problems that Providence has. They're not going to pass laws to make that happen. I don't think they want to be derelict in their duty.
Well, then bring it to them.
I will give
That's
them
what
the
I'm saying.
benefit of the doubt.
The governor needs to bring it to them.
And I think that will happen with our leadership and with the legislative branch. I think both of them will get involved.
It should have happened last week.
Should have happened many years ago.
Well, why are we agreeing about this? Is like a pillow debate that we're having. So I'm asking. Listen, you're the only two guys that authored what I think is the correct direction, put in print at least, the direct direction. Here we go. Last try. Correct direction for this. I just need to hear more editorial common ground out there that the governor is not done. That, listen, you take a box and you say, this is the box that the gift needs to go into. This gift you're talking about? But the gift is 3 times the size of the box. The problem is bigger than the box, so you've got to build a new box. The box has got to be foundationally sound in order to create a governance model that is hair on fire for the state, her new appointee, and to move city government out of the way. Case in point, this Mayor Elorza tries to tell us that he's going to be responsible for the miscellaneous urine, rat feces, asbestos stuff. He's done nothing. Zero. No accountability, no audit, no ever. The city government is already proffering that they would probably like to have a hand in the accountability on some of this stuff. The school department, the school committee chair hasn't resigned. Telling you, and I'm desperate to make this point, that this commissioner's efforts are largely DOA without the right box.
You think it's dead on arrival? Well, let me say this. She's going to pick a special master or a superintendent or some person that's going to be in charge of this entire move. That's probably going to not happen until maybe October, November. So let's see what happens. And let's continue having the debate and having the discussion that's going on. Back in the 80s.
And why, by the way, is it going to happen in October, November?
Well, maybe it's in September, but...
oh, no, but you're right, Why is it going to happen in mid-fall?
Because I think they're going to...
Because the box only allows her to do it then.
Why?
Because there's a 2-week reporting period that comes back under this Crowley Act for the takeover. And then a 30-day period where the city government has a chance to respond and think about what they are doing. That alone creates...
So that's what you're saying. If you're going to have a special session, let's do it over this right now.
They should have done it last week to say,
you're probably right.
Steroids.
I don't disagree with you, but let's just... I don't want to be in the doing all this critical because everybody's been involved. Failed. So now let's look at what's going to happen in the future. If the legislature, if the governor, if the city council, if the mayor do not go along with in the unions, go along with major change in the system, they're all going to be thrown out by the public. Absolutely. They will really fail the system. They have an opportunity. And with opportunity, you're going to see, I believe the state's going to have to provide more dollars to try to help fix some of the problems that we're talking about. I hate to always say, when I was mayor, but it was 35 years ago. But years ago, we had to rebuild the schools. They were all falling apart. The envelope, the ceilings, the walls, the bathrooms were terrible. And we did a $50 million bond issue. I'll never forget, Gilbane was our construction manager. And Bill Gilbane came to see me, and I knew him for years. He said, Joe, if you're not going to keep ongoing maintenance, don't spend the money. It's going to be a waste of time. I see that with my real estate today. If I'm not putting capital improvements back in to fix things, I'm going to have a bigger problem later on. And what happened afterwards is that they cut maintenance from the budgets. And this big bond issue that the state's done, I said to the people that were putting it together, have you put money in that bond issue for maintenance? Well, we're going to leave it to the cities and towns. Cities and towns aren't going to do it.
The first issuance of the bond issue is already spoken for. I mean, there's so much need statewide, it's incredible. We come back, a final thought on this, and how's this bus station thing going? Stay with us.
It's actually really designed, if you look at some of the regulations that were crafted around it, specific schools, right? The ability to say, boy, Hope High School is really faltering. We got to get in there.
And they went in there and made a little bit of a turnaround and then stopped.
And then it all falls back. This was not Whether it was designed or not, I mean, there's a debate to be had about this, but it does not appear as though, I mean, there's a reason why in the regulations, every page, every reference is about schools, not districts.
So Dan McGowan last night, 2 nights ago from the Boston Globe, his story that appeared Thursday morning is interesting. He was talking about the unions, which have a very important role here. And I think Mary Beth Calabro, the president of the local in Providence, is made some good faith efforts to really engage this conversation. And I think she's a good egg. However, John DYSOM, just an old boy from the Hill, right? The former House Majority Leader. I bumped into John the other day. You know, he's an operator. He's a good guy, but he's part of the old school politics. His answer, and he's the attorney for the union. His answer to the notion of reopening the contract, he suggests that any attempt to unilaterally change the contract will end up in court. Now, that may be true based on whatever comes up. But the last thing anybody should be saying right now, from any point of any reference, is we could end up in court. That's the gobbledygook that's the gum that sticks to your shoes in this whole thing. Don't you agree? It's like, John, what are you doing?
To me, it's rhetoric. Those words mean nothing to me.
I don't. Words matter, Joe.
They don't mean a thing to me right now. I think that the momentum and the urgency is so powerful, it's going to override everything, and I believe everybody's going to have to get in line and follow the commissioner. That's why I truly believe that. And I don't believe it's going to be as tough. If it is, then they're just failing everything. They're failing themselves.
Well, I'll leave that there. By the way, how's your bus station deal? You're trying to get the bus station moved up the road.
I've been trying to move a bus station for 4.5 years.
I know, we did a whole show on it, so give me a 60-second summary. What's happening?
We're in court. There's a start date is going to be in September, beginning of September. For the case. And their whole bond issue could be in jeopardy because they've been orchestrating this wrong.
The RIPTA bond issue.
The RIPTA bond issue. But there are talks, and if we could try to settle, let's try to settle. And but you can't you don't need a hub. Have 2 bus stops on the street, 2 on that street, 2 on the street. Not everybody all in one area. They have the high school students all using RIPTA, all coming down. They're all fighting each other in Kennedy Plaza. They don't get it.
And you look out your window and see it every day.
I see it every day. And again, another sense of urgency that doesn't exist in our community. And it's frustrating to see it because I worked with guys like Cianci. We got along and we fought. But he had a sense of urgency. Southern, we got along and we fought. But he had a sense of urgency. I don't see it anymore. And it's frustrating, and it makes me angry because I know you can get it done.
You're so funny because I just told you there's no sense of urgency on the schools, but you have nothing but confidence that the movement will occur.
Because this is the #1 issue everybody's talking about.
Because everyone shares the sense of urgency?
Look, if it doesn't happen before the end of the year, then we're going to know that they're really screwed up. But you have to give them a shot to try to change this. Give them the shot.
I appreciate the dialogue.
You have no choice.
Thank you, pal.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
All right. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. We'll continue to pound away on this school situation because I have to tell you, I hate to break it to you people in the burbs of Rhode Island, in the beaches during the summer. As Providence goes, so goes this state. And unless and until you acknowledge that and recognize that this story is about you too, because your taxpayer dollars fund this system, we're going to be behind the 8 ball. Have a great weekend. Joe Sicarci, the majority leader in the House from Warwick, with its own challenges. Monday. Good night.